Namaskar, this is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Pressure is building on Mohammed Yunus. The radicals that he cultivated are now taking him on. Today they had a clear message for him: deliver justice for Osman Hadi or get ready to flee Bangladesh. So how is Yunus handling this new challenge? Has he finally realized that India's warnings were right? We'll bring you the full story tonight. Also on the show, the US economy shows impressive growth despite Trump's tariffs. China now considers Arunachal Pradesh to be a core interest. We'll tell you what that means for India. Over in Latin America, the US is on a deal-making spree. From troop deployments to airport access, what is Trump's end goal? Here in India, the government has approved 2 new airlines. It was also a big day for India's space program. ISRO launched its heaviest commercial satellite yet. Finally, a special report on the Christmas economy. How big is it and what are the key trends? All this and more lined up. When a crisis brews, vultures circle. They swoop around, then wait in patience, all for that one moment to barge in. And that is Pakistan right now. They're looking to capitalize on the crisis in Bangladesh, on the tensions between Delhi and Dhaka. Tonight, we'll tell you how. But first, the latest updates. The manhunt continues for the killer of Osman Hadi. His supporters are growing impatient. Yesterday, they issued an ultimatum with 3 demands. 1, to conclude Hadi's trial in 30 days. For that, they're asking Dhaka to seek foreign help, to rope in agencies like the FBI and the Scotland Yard. I mean, the hypocrisy is glaring. These same groups talked about so-called Indian meddling, but now they're begging the FBI to step in. Anyway, that's the first demand, a speedy trial within 30 days. Secondly, they want to prosecute so-called collaborators in the government. Now, who are these collaborators? Apparently, Sheikh Hasina sympathizers. There is no evidence to back up this claim, but at this point, anything goes. Which brings us to the third demand, the resignation of the Home and Law Ministers. These are the 3 demands of Osman Hadi's supporters. And what if these demands are not met? Well, then more violence could erupt. Osman Hadi's brother has made that quite clear. He's blaming Mohammed Yunus for the law and order issues. He says if justice is not delivered, even Yunus may have to flee Dhaka.
একটা জিনিস আপনারা মনে রাখবেন, বাংলাদেশের জুলাই বিপ্লবের আগে যারা ক্ষমতাধর ছিলেন, যারা রাষ্ট্রকে নিজেদের মনে করতেন, তারা কিন্তু আজকে কেউই বাংলাদেশে নাই। তারা পালাতে বাধ্য হয়েছে। ওসমান হাদির বিচার যদি না হয়, আপনারাও একদিনে বাংলাদেশ থেকে পালাতে বাধ্য হবেন। খুনির বিচার করুন। আপনারাই ওসমান হাদিকে হত্যা করিয়েছেন, আবার আপনারাই এটাকে ইস্যু করে নির্বাচন বানচাল করার চেষ্টা করতেছেন। তা আমরা কখনোই হতে দিব না।
How the tables turn. Yunus once celebrated Hasina's escape from Dhaka. Now he is being threatened with the same fate. And the pressure is not just internal. Late on Tuesday, India summoned the Bangladeshi High Commissioner. They demanded a thorough investigation into Osman Hadi's killing. Because this affects India too. Hadi's supporters say the shooter fled to India. The shooter crossed the border and entered India. But New Delhi has rejected this claim, and so has the Bangladesh police. The Bangladesh police has said, Mohammed Yunus's own police admit that there is no evidence that Hadi's killer is in India. Only a thorough probe will bring out the truth, not some politically motivated investigation. Meanwhile, the public sentiment continues to grow bitter. There is genuine anger over the lynching of a Hindu man last week. Today, Hindu groups in India organized protests near the border with Bangladesh. There are signs of damage control in Dhaka. Yunus's finance minister is striking a cordial tone. He says Bangladesh does not want a bitter relationship with India. Some media reports say Yunus is personally seeing to that. And frankly, that sounds like a joke, because Mohammed Yunus personally soured this relationship. He picked a fight over Sheikh Hasina, he dismissed India's concerns around minorities, and he made provocative comments on India's northeast. So what has changed? Has reality finally hit him? The interim regime has promised to take care of Deepu Das's family. Deepu Das was the Hindu man who was lynched last week. The state says it will take care of his family. It's a welcome step, but it's far from enough. Mohammed Yunus must acknowledge the systemic problem here. He cannot dismiss this as an isolated incident. He must accept the increasing radicalization. If not, the problem won't be solved. Also, there's a worrying Pakistan angle here. Reports say Dhaka and Islamabad are looking to finalize a military deal, and the details are worrying. It's being compared to the Pakistan-Saudi Arabia deal. That was a mutual defense treaty. Basically, both countries promised to defend each other if attacked. It called for military training, joint drills, intelligence sharing, and even nuclear deterrence. Meaning Pakistan offered its nuclear shield to Riyadh. Reports say a similar offer has been made to Dhaka. They're hoping to seal the deal before elections in February. And this is all sorts of problematic. Such a deal would tie Bangladesh's security to Pakistan. It shouldn't be decided by an interim regime. It should be decided by an elected government in Dhaka. Of course, Pakistan is keen on it. Their ruling party's youth leader is provoking India. He says if Bangladesh is attacked, missiles will fly.
अगर कोई माशी दबाव बांग्लादेश पे डालने की कोशिश करेगा या बांग्लादेश की खुद मुख्तारी पे अटैक करने की कोशिश करेगा तो पाकिस्तान की बाशऊर अवाम आपके साथ खड़ी होगी। अब मैं ब्राह्मण साम्राज्य को बड़ा एक क्लियर मैसेज देना चाहता हूं कि अगर अब किसी ने मैली निगाह उठा के बांग्लादेश की तरफ देखा ना तो पाकिस्तानी अवाम, पाकिस्तानी अफवाज और हमारे मिसाइल आपसे दूर नहीं है।
You cannot make this up. Pakistan carried out a genocide in Bangladesh. They killed some 3 million Bangladeshis in 1971. Now the same Pakistan is promising to defend Dhaka, that too from India, which saved Bangladesh in 1971. Like I said, you cannot make this up. The next couple of days will be crucial in Bangladesh. Tomorrow, Bangladesh Nationalist Party chief Tariq Rahman is returning, the BNP chief. His party is planning to mobilize millions of people in Dhaka. It's not an ideal scenario amid this growing violence. We'll keep tracking the situation for you. The latest US growth numbers are out and they have stunned even the skeptics. America's economy expanded by 4.3% last quarter. This is for the July to September quarter, and this is the fastest pace of growth in nearly 2 years. It comes after months of economic warning signs. Remember, there was talk of a slowdown, even warnings of a recession. Trump's trade war was taking a toll. Rising tariffs were squeezing household budgets and sending shockwaves through the global economy. Yet it appears that the US has been able to overcome all of it. President Donald Trump was quick to react. He wrote on Truth Social, and I'm quoting from what he said, "The tariffs are responsible for the great USA economic numbers just announced, and they will only get better." Of course, he's claiming credit. 4.3% growth looks good on paper, but that headline number does not tell the full story. Because experts say beneath the surface, there is a strain. The economy might be growing, but the growth is not even, and it's not for everyone. So let's look at the figure closely. 4.3% GDP growth. Where is it coming from? Most of it comes from America's wealthiest 20%. They're still spending, and that is driving economic growth. Says who? The US Commerce Department. It says spending by high-income households remains high, but for America's middle class, spending has dropped. And that's where most of America lives, the middle class. They are struggling. Their spending numbers are flat. In fact, about 1/3 of the middle class cannot even afford the basics, stuff like food, housing, and childcare. These essentials are becoming unaffordable for them. That's because their incomes are not growing. In fact, the jobs market is in disarray. In November, unemployment hit 4.6%. That's a 4-year high. Also in November, 64,000 jobs were added. But that followed a massive drop in October. 105,000 workers lost their jobs in that month. So the overall trend is weak. Hiring has slowed, and that is having a ripple effect on incomes. What's worse, the strain could increase in the days ahead. President Trump is targeting H-1B visas again. He's scrapping the lottery system. And what's the lottery system? You see, every year the US issues 85,000 H-1B visas, 85,000 visas, but applications always exceed that number. So the US runs a lottery. Applicants are picked at random. If your name is drawn, you get the visa. If you don't get it, you try again the next year. That's how the system has worked so far, and that system is now being dismantled. Because Trump wants a new model. It is called a weighted system, one that gives priority to the highest paid and the most highly skilled. In other words, H-1B visas will now go to those who have the money. And that is bad news for Indian workers, especially those at the entry level. They will struggle to qualify. So fewer Indian workers are likely to make it. But the impact on America will be bigger because these visas help build America's edge in the technology sector. The H-1B system brought in top talent from across the world. It powered Silicon Valley and gave the US a lead in innovation. Now that pipeline of talent is under threat because Trump is shifting the goalpost. It's no longer just about your skill, it's about your bank account. That's what matters. Basically, Trump is saying if you're wealthy, you're welcome in the US. Let's also clear with his gold card policy. A few days ago, the US unveiled the Trump Gold Card. It is a new visa program for the ultra-rich. It offers a path to US citizenship for those who can pay at least $1 million. So this is basically immigration with a price tag, and it's changing who gets to work and live in the US. Companies are bound to take notice of this and recalibrate. Will they pay more for Trump's visas? At this point, it looks unlikely. Instead, they could slow down hiring or rethink how they want to invest. Some reports suggest it's already happening. Corporate profits grew by $166 billion in the last quarter, so businesses are earning money. But investments have cooled, meaning they're making more money, but they're not investing it back. So to wrap it up, yes, America is growing, but it is not growing evenly. It's the rich who are making big gains, but the middle class is stuck. And with the job market slowing down, the US economy faces more challenging times ahead. What does China want? It's a question a lot of experts grapple with. Does China want Taiwan? Does it want the South China Sea? Does it want to topple America? What exactly does China want? If you ask the Communist Party, they often talk about the Great Rejuvenation, basically a restoration of old Chinese glory, sort of like make China great again. And there's a deadline too. China is hoping to complete this project by 2049. That is the 100th anniversary of the People's Republic, 2049. And in this pursuit, Beijing has certain goals, certain core interests, as they call it. And among them is India's Arunachal Pradesh. Says who? The US government. They have submitted a special report to the US Congress. It details China's new core interests. One, of course, is Taiwan. One is the South China Sea. One is the Senkaku Islands, which are held by Japan. And one is Arunachal Pradesh. Let me give you the background first. If you're an Indian, you already know this. Arunachal Pradesh is a state of the Indian Union. It is an integral part of our country. But China has never accepted this. They claim Arunachal Pradesh as their own. It's something that they recently reiterated.
First of all, Zhangnan, southern Tibet, is Chinese territory, and China has never recognized the so-called Arunachal Pradesh illegally established by India.
China's claims can be traced to the 1950s. That's when Mao Zedong propagated his five-finger theory. He called Tibet the palm of China, and he said this palm, Tibet, had 5 fingers: Ladakh, Nepal, Bhutan, Sikkim and Arunachal Pradesh. In fact, China calls Arunachal southern Tibet. So the claim is pretty old. In the 1962 war, China occupied parts of Arunachal Pradesh, but after the ceasefire, they unilaterally withdrew. Yet the claims continue. Consider what happened in 2023. China was hosting the World University Games in Chengdu. A few Indian athletes from Arunachal Pradesh were also taking part. Just one problem though, China gave them a stapled visa. Your normal visas are stamped on the passport, but a stapled visa is simply attached, not stamped. It's a tactic to undercut India's sovereignty over the state. And we saw a similar move last month as well. An Indian citizen from Arunachal Pradesh was flying through Shanghai. The Chinese authorities blocked her. They said her passport was invalid. And why was that? Because she was born in Arunachal Pradesh. When this incident happened, an Indian vlogger was in China. He decided to make a video in support of the Indian woman, and turns out he too was detained. The vlogger revealed his ordeal earlier today. He claims he was held by Chinese authorities for 15 hours. So clearly, Beijing wants to make this a big issue, an issue that is tied to their great national plan for 2049. And there are 2 points to note here. One is the timing of this American report and Chinese activities. India and China are in the middle of a reset. Both sides were locked in a border standoff from 2021 to 2024, but last October, they signed a deal. Both militaries have pulled back from flashpoint areas, India and China. They've also agreed on patrols. Now, the hope was that things would get even better, maybe more trade promises, or rapid investments, or a return of TikTok. But so far, none of that has happened, all thanks to China. They're yet to lift some of their rare earth restrictions on India. And clearly, they're not letting go of Arunachal. It tells you the limit of their reset with India. So that's the first point. And secondly, it's a new approach to Arunachal. Yes, China always claimed this state. They always claimed Arunachal Pradesh, but in the past it was not seen as a core interest. Historians say China wanted to barter the region. Basically, India gives up its claims in the west, which is Aksai Chin in Ladakh, and in exchange, China gives up its claims in the east, which is Arunachal Pradesh. But look at the latest assessment. Forget a barter. Arunachal is being described as a core interest, that too at par with Taiwan and the South China Sea. So has something changed in Beijing's strategic thinking, or is this bluster to intimidate India? Well, whatever it is, New Delhi must take note. On the diplomatic front, it reaffirms what we already know. China cannot be a reliable partner. A strong India is not part of their vision. On the military front, it's a signal for India to be prepared. We are talking more border infrastructure, we are talking more roads, more firepower and more intelligence. Because the last thing you want is to be caught off guard. Let's turn to the Caribbean now. I'm sure you've seen what the US military is doing. It is striking boats, seizing tankers and blockading Venezuela. But turns out it's not just about hard power, because behind the scenes, there is also a diplomatic campaign that's going on. A campaign to spread US influence. In the past week, Washington has struck 4 security deals. In Paraguay, the US military can now deploy soldiers. For what? To target so-called narco-terrorists. In Ecuador too, the US can now position soldiers, and this is despite a referendum that rejects foreign bases in the country. So much for public will. The people said no to foreign troops, but their government is welcoming US soldiers. In Peru, same story. Washington will now be able to send soldiers there, and in Trinidad and Tobago, the government is giving airport access to the Americans, so the US can now install radars in the country. They can also use their airport. And these deals, or such deals rather, are not unprecedented. The US has always had a security presence in the Caribbean, like in El Salvador and Curacao. But these new deals are coming thick and fast. The question is why? And what does it mean for the region? On paper, President Donald Trump is linking all of it to drugs. But data shows that's a stretch. Most of the drug production happens in Colombia, Peru and Mexico. Paraguay is not a prominent producer, nor is Trump's enemy number 1, Venezuela. So if drugs are not the trigger, then what is? Perhaps it's strategy. Trump unveiled his national security strategy last month. Think of it as a compilation of top US priorities. And here's what it says about Latin America. I'm quoting, "The United States will reassert and enforce the Monroe Doctrine to restore American preeminence in the Western Hemisphere, we will deny non-hemispheric competitors the ability to position forces or other threatening capabilities or to own or control strategically vital assets in our hemisphere. Some context first. The Monroe Doctrine was unveiled in 1823. It was propagated by then US President James Monroe. And what does it say? In the 1800s, it was a message to the Europeans. Remember, this was still the age of colonialism, but Washington was basically asking Europe to stay out of the Western Hemisphere. You keep your colonial activities to your side of the world, do not bring it to the Americas. That was the message from the US to Europe. In recent history, it's been interpreted as American dominance. Basically, only the US will dominate the Western Hemisphere. And Trump is doubling down on this. He has added a so-called Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. And what is that? No other power will be allowed a foothold in this region. No naval deployments, no assets, and no power projection. Maybe that explains these new deals. But what is the end game? Well, this is where things get a bit confusing. One day Trump talks about illegal migration, the next day he talks about drugs, and the third day he talks about oil. There is no clear goal defined by the White House. Basically, we don't know why Trump is doing any of this. Even his voter base is a bit confused. Yes, they like cracking down on drugs and migration, but they don't like foreign intervention. So it's a toss-up with the public. Which brings us to the second question. What does this mean for the region? Well, there is an ideological and security realignment. Recent elections in Latin America have brought right-wing rulers to power, and they look up to Donald Trump. His conservative politics resonates with them. At the same time, there are security gains as well. For example, Peru is set to purchase F-16 fighter jets. Trump has declared them a major non-NATO ally. Others like Ecuador have ongoing talks with the International Monetary Fund, and they need American support for good deals. They need US support. Plus, the power difference is jarring. You see, these are tiny countries with underfunded militaries. They simply cannot challenge the United States. So maybe they think it's better to just give in. But history shows that's not always a good idea, because you risk getting dragged into the fighting. The US will win the war, they will topple regimes and leave. These smaller countries will be left counting the dead. What will it take to end the Ukraine war? It's one of the big questions we are carrying into 2026. Through this year, we've had many moments of hope, only to be followed by more fighting. Today, there is fresh hope. Ukraine has floated a new deal. Their president, Volodymyr Zelensky, has proposed it. It's a new 20-point plan. It talks about, and I'm quoting, it talks about freezing the front lines. Those are the words they've used, freezing the front lines. It suggests that Ukrainian troops could pull back from the Donbass, which is a region largely controlled by Russia. The plan also proposes demilitarized zones. And this is a significant shift because these are ideas that Ukraine had refused to consider in the past. But now Zelensky has agreed to them. He says both Kiev and Washington support the new plan, and the ball is in Moscow's court. Does that mean Kiev has made a concession? Are they willing to give up territory to end this conflict? And most importantly, will Russia agree to this new plan? Here's a report.
Ukraine has laid down a new peace proposal. It comes after months of stalled negotiations and growing pressure to end the war. This new plan is different. It offers a way to freeze the front lines. President Volodymyr Zelensky says this is Kyiv's clearest offer yet, a 20-point plan. Zelensky says it is backed by the United States, and it has been shared with Moscow. Let's break down what's in it. Zelensky has said he's willing to withdraw troops from the Donbass region, from the areas that Ukraine still controls. But Russia must also pull back by an equal distance. These areas would then become demilitarized. In simple terms, no troops, no weapons, no military operations. Instead, these would become free economic zones. This is a revised version of an earlier document. The original 28-point draft had leaned more toward Russian demands. Now, it's been cut to 20 points and reworked through weeks of US-led talks. But not all points have been agreed upon. Some significant gaps remain on the issue of over-territory and nuclear infrastructure. Russia still occupies Europe's largest nuclear facility in Zaporizhia. Ukraine wants Russian troops out, but the two sides couldn't reach a deal. So, Kyiv proposed a compromise. Ukraine is pitching a joint venture between Kyiv and Washington. Both sides could manage Zaporizhia plant together. The plan also includes long-term security terms. Ukraine would get formal guarantees from the US, NATO, and Europe. They are similar to NATO's Article 5, the Mutual Defense Clause, where an attack on one ally would trigger a response from all. So, if Ukraine is attacked again, military help would be automatic. There's also a limit on Ukraine's military. The plan allows 800,000 troops in peacetime. That's seen as a compromise to ease Russian concerns. What about Ukraine's bid to join NATO? Earlier, Moscow had insisted Kyiv must renounce its bid. But the 20-point plan makes no mention of barring Ukraine from joining NATO. But ultimately, it all comes down to territory. Any peace deal in Ukraine must address Donbass. That question cannot be avoided. Donbass consists of two regions, Donetsk and Luhansk. As things stand today, Russia controls nearly 90% of the Donbass. Moscow has demanded full control of it. Zelensky's plan doesn't give them that. It offers shared pullbacks, not full withdrawal. So far, Russia hasn't accepted those terms. President Putin has warned, if Ukraine doesn't pull out fully, Russia will take the region by force. The proposal has been shared with the Kremlin.
Dmitriev has already had the opportunity to brief the president on the outcome of his trip in detail. Based on the information the head of state received, we now intend to formulate our further position and resume contacts in the near future through the channels that are currently operating.
Zelensky says Kyiv expects a formal response soon. But key parts of the plan, like the economic zones and troop withdrawals, will require public backing. Zelensky says a national referendum will be needed, especially for anything involving territorial compromise. Beyond the battlefield, the plan also includes a path to redevelop Ukraine, like Ukraine's candidacy to join the European Union, this time with a fixed accession timeline. A $200 billion investment fund was proposed as well to rebuild Ukraine. The fund will be backed by the US and Europe. And fresh elections in Ukraine are expected soon after the deal is signed. The ball is now in Moscow's court, and what happens next could shape the future of the conflict.
Our next story is about two Americans. One runs the White House, the other runs the Vatican, and let's just say they're not exactly exchanging Christmas cards. You already know who I'm talking about here. The first is Donald Trump, the President of the United States. The second is Pope Leo, the head of the Catholic Church. He's the first American Pope in history, and he's clashing with Donald Trump. The Pope has slammed the Trump administration's policy on immigration. He has called it inhuman. He's also waded into the growing tensions with Venezuela.
Sobre Venezuela.
The voices coming from the United States change, and from time to time, pretty often. We have to see. On the one hand, it seems that there was a conversation on the phone between the two presidents. On the other hand, there is this danger, this possibility of an operation, including an invasion of Venezuelan territory. I don't know more.
But why is Pope Leo going against President Trump? And what does it mean for the US? To understand this, let's start with the two men in question. The first, obviously, is Trump. He believes that nations are like houses. They need walls. The more, the better. Since being elected for the second term, Trump has cracked down harder on immigration. He has deported people, he has banned travel from several countries, and he has restricted access to visas. Pope Leo believes this is not the right path. And that could be because of his own life story. The Pope grew up around working-class families. He spent years as a missionary in Peru. He has met refugees, he has worked with them, and those are the experiences that he's carried to the papacy. So when he saw the deportations, he delivered his sharpest critique. He called the administration's action inhumane.
I think there are a lot of problems in the system. No one has said that the United States should have open borders. I think every country has a right to determine who and how and when people enter. But when people are living good lives, and many of them for 10, 15, 20 years, to treat them in a way that is extremely disrespectful, to say the least, and there's been some violence, unfortunately. I think that the bishops have been very clear in what they said, and I think that I would just invite all people in the United States to listen to them.
And now he's speaking up on Venezuela. We've been telling you about that standoff on the show. Tensions are rising between the US and Venezuela. Trump is targeting Venezuela. He's deploying US military ships in the region. He's talking about a land operation. He's blockading Venezuelan oil. Donald Trump says he's just fighting drug traffickers. But Venezuela's President Maduro says it is all for regime change. Now, the Pope usually steers clear of political situations, but not Pope Leo. He has asked Trump to not launch a military invasion of Venezuela.
Regarding Venezuela, together with the local bishops' conference and with the nuncio, we are searching ways to calm down the situation, mostly for the good of the people. Because very often who suffers in these situations is the people and not the authorities. I believe once again that it is better to find ways to have dialogue, maybe pressure, including economic pressure, but searching for other ways to change. If this is what the United States is willing to do.
And how is Trump responding to it? Well, until now, the US president has not said much, which is surprising, to be honest. He was asked about it in a recent interview. Trump says he has not heard about the criticism. However, he did seem open to meet the Pope soon. Also, this is not the first time that Trump is clashing with the Pope. During his first term as president, Pope Francis was in the Vatican, and that relationship was also rocky. The Pope openly slammed Trump's border walls. Trump responded by calling him political. And we've seen this before, basically. But what does it mean for the United States, this clash with the Pope? In America, 1 in 5 people identifies as Catholic. The church influences voters and their political conscience. Trump courted Catholic voters in 2024. A lot of them helped him win the election. Many right-wing Catholics now sit at the center of his administration, the likes of J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, and Linda McMahon. But immigration has become a fault line between the church leadership and the government. White Catholics largely support Trump's approach, but not everyone agrees. Take the Hispanic Catholics, for example. They make up 37% of US Catholics, and they are against Trump's immigration crackdown. Many in the clergy are immigrants themselves. Churches have protested outside ICE detention centers. ICE is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This is the department that is cracking down on immigrants. Some churches have even used nativity scenes to make political statements. Clearly, this is a flashpoint, and it is also personal for Pope Leo. The Pope's own brother is openly pro-Trump. His name is Louis Prevost. He met Trump at the White House in May this year. So the Catholic community itself is divided. The leadership speaks in one language, but political Catholics speak another. And both sides claim that faith is their foundation. And this clash tells us two things. One, faith can shape politics, of course it can, but it doesn't always agree with those in power. And two, Religious authority in 2025 is no longer silent or passive. It is entering debates on migration, on war, and on climate. Trump and Pope Leo may share a flag, but their worldviews are worlds apart. Weeks after the Indigo crisis, India's aviation sector is looking at a reset. 2 new airlines could begin operations next year. They're called Al Hind Air and Fly Express. The government has cleared their plans. Both have received no objection certificates or NOCs this week. Like I said, this comes in the wake of the Indigo crisis. Indigo is India's biggest airline. It cancelled more than 4,000 flights in a matter of days, and this completely upended Indian aviation. You see, India has a duopoly in this sector. Indigo controls over 60% of the market and Air India has another 30%. Together, they account for nearly 90% of all domestic air traffic. There is an urgent need to change that, and now India's Civil Aviation Ministry is pushing for more airlines. It believes a market as big as India needs at least 5 major carriers. So the decks have been cleared for 2 new carriers, but this is only the beginning, because these airlines must now show that they can operate real flights for a full regulatory approval. Here's a report.
2 new players, 1 big message. India wants more competition in its skies. Al Hind Air and Fly Express have received no objection certificates, or NOCs, from the Ministry of Civil Aviation. That's the first regulatory step toward launching an airline. But it comes at a very specific moment, just weeks after Indigo's crew shortage grounded over 4,000 flights. And in recent days, more flights have been cancelled, this time due to dense fog across North India. The bigger problem is structural. Indigo controls more than 60% of the domestic market. Air India, backed by the Tata Group, holds another major share. Together, these 2 airlines now account for close to 90% of all domestic air traffic. That kind of market concentration leaves little room for disruption. When one airline stumbles, the entire network feels it. That's what the government wants to fix.
Strict and appropriate action.
Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu spoke in Parliament at the height of the Indigo crisis. He says India needs a minimum of 5 major airlines.
We are encouraging more new airlines to
This is to manage growing passenger traffic and offer real choice. India's aviation market is expected to become the world's 3rd largest in the next few years. The Indian government wants to build capacity before that demand peaks, and that means breaking the duopoly. But it's going to be an uphill task. Both new airlines, Al Hind Air and Fly Express, now face a long compliance process. An NOC is only the first step. To fly commercially, each carrier must prove operational readiness. They need aircraft, trained crew, maintenance infrastructure, and ground staff. Then comes the second major hurdle, the Air Operator Certificate from the DGCA. That involves route-proving flights and extensive inspections. DGCA is the Directorate General of Civil Aviation. It is India's primary regulatory body for civil aviation. The DGCA needs to clear these airlines. The process can take months, and sometimes over a year. As of now, Al Hind Air and Fly Express haven't announced when they plan to launch, but their entry reflects a policy shift. For most of the past decade, India's aviation sector saw consolidation. Now, it's opening up again. And the move is not just about consumer choice. It's also about resilience. There's a cautionary tale here, too. In recent years, the aviation sector has struggled. Established names like Jet Airways and Go First have been forced to close, and new players like Akasa have struggled to gain ground. That means success is not guaranteed. So competition alone won't be enough. The environment must also support stability, from airport infrastructure to crew availability and fuel costs. As India opens its skies to new entrants, the challenge now is to ensure new airlines can stay there.
Our next story is about India's space program. It has achieved a significant milestone. Today, ISRO launched its heaviest commercial satellite ever. ISRO is the Indian Space Research Organization. It is the agency that builds and launches India's rockets and satellites. The satellite launched today is called Bluebird Block 2. It is designed to provide mobile internet directly from space to smartphones. It is built by a US company but launched into space using an Indian rocket. And that is what makes this launch significant. Bluebird is the heaviest payload India has ever put into orbit. It weighs about 6,000 kilograms and it shows India's growing role in the global commercial space market. Here's a report.
India has crossed a new threshold in space. On Wednesday, India's Space Research Organization launched its heaviest satellite ever into low Earth orbit. The launch took place at 8:55 a.m. Indian Standard Time. It lifted off from the Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota. The rocket was LVM-3M6. This is India's heavy-lift launch vehicle. On board was the Bluebird Block 2 communication satellite. The satellite weighed nearly 6,000 kilograms. That makes it the heaviest payload ever launched from Indian soil. Until now, that record belonged to another ISRO mission. In November, India launched the CMS-3 communication satellite. That satellite weighed over 4,000 kilograms. Bluebird Block 2 is far heavier, and it was placed into low Earth orbit. That matters, because low Earth orbit missions demand much higher precision. ISRO says the satellite was injected into orbit with accuracy of under 2 kilometers. That is among the best achieved globally.
This is the 9th successful launch of the LVM-3 vehicle. It demonstrated 100% reliability. All the launches made so far are successful. The heaviest satellite ever lifted from Indian soil is accomplished today. Close to 6,000 kg, precisely 5,908 kg. That is the heaviest satellite ever lifted from Indian soil. We were aiming for 520 kilometer circular orbit, 518 by 519.8, less than 1.5 kilometer precision. This is one of the best accuracy achieved by any launcher in the world.
So what exactly is Bluebird Block 2? It is a communications satellite built by a U.S. company called AST Space Mobile. Its purpose is to provide mobile internet directly to ordinary smartphones. No satellite dish or a special device, just a phone. The satellite is part of a planned global network. That network aims to support voice calls, video calls, messages, and data, even in remote areas. This launch was carried out under a commercial agreement. For India, that is important, because it shows global companies are trusting Indian rockets, not just for science missions, but for high-value commercial work. The rocket used for this mission also has a wider role. It is the same vehicle selected for India's human spaceflight program, Gaganyaan. ISRO says its consistent performance is building confidence for future crewed missions.
From 2017 to till today, whatever launches done by LVM-3 rocket is 100% success. And this is the same rocket we have earmarked with the human rating level for the Gaganyaan program. This success gives further confidence for going ahead with the Gaganyaan program.
After the successful launch, Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated the ISRO team. He called the mission a proud milestone for India.
The successful LVM-3M6 launch marks a proud milestone in India's space journey. It strengthens India's heavy-lift launch capability and reinforces our growing role in the global commercial launch market. This is also reflective of our efforts towards an Atmanirbhar Bharat.
The timing of this mission is also important. ISRO is already looking ahead to 2026. It has a busy commercial schedule coming up. Besides, private Indian space companies are also preparing for new launches. This mission strengthens all of that. It shows India can lift heavier satellites with precision, reliability, and growing global trust.
LVM-3M6 Bluebird Block 2 mission successfully accomplished.
Libya is back in the headlines today. Yesterday we told you about an arms deal that they've signed with Pakistan. Today it's in the news for a deadly air crash. Libya's military chief has been killed in a plane crash in Turkey. His name is Mohammed al-Haddad. Al-Haddad had a high-level meeting with Turkish defense officials. Then his jet took off from Ankara and was headed back to Libya. But shortly after takeoff, the aircraft reported a technical failure. And moments later, the plane lost contact. It crashed near Ankara, killing everyone on board. The death has dealt a major blow to Libya because al-Haddad was trying to unify Libya's military. This country has been grappling with political instability since 2011. That's when its longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi was ousted. Since then, there has been violence and instability. Today, Libya is a divided country with two governments and militaries. Al-Haddad was trying to bridge that divide. His death has left that process uncertain. For now, Turkish authorities have recovered the wreckage. An investigation is underway. Our next report has more.
A routine flight home ended in disaster. Late Tuesday night, a private jet carrying Libya's top military commander went down in central Turkey. There were no survivors. The aircraft, a Falcon 50 business jet, had taken off from Ankara. It was heading back to Tripoli in Libya. On board were 8 people, Libya's military chief, 4 senior officers and 3 crew members. About 40 minutes after takeoff, something went wrong. Turkish authorities say the jet reported an electrical failure. It requested an emergency landing. Air traffic control redirected the aircraft back towards Ankara, but contact was lost. Moments later, the jet crashed south of the Turkish capital. Local residents say the impact was violent.
There was a big jolt. At first, everyone thought it was an earthquake. Then people started saying a plane had crashed.
The wreckage was later found scattered across rugged terrain. Emergency teams worked through the night. By morning, Turkish authorities confirmed the worst. Among the dead was Mohammed al-Haddad. He was Libya's chief of general staff and one of the most powerful military figures in western Libya. Al-Haddad had been in Ankara for defense talks with Turkish officials. He played a key role in military coordination with Turkey. Al-Haddad was also central to UN-backed efforts to reunify Libya's fractured armed forces. That makes his death more than an aviation tragedy. Libya has been politically divided since 2011. The country fractured after the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi. State institutions collapsed and power shifted to rival factions and armed groups. Today, there is a UN-recognized government in Tripoli and a rival administration in the east. His role was critical in holding fragile military structures together. Now, that balance has taken a blow. Back at the crash site, investigators are searching for answers. Turkish authorities say flight recorders have been recovered. They will be crucial to understanding what caused the crash.
Following investigations at the scene of the incident, the aircraft's voice recorder was found at 2:45 and the black box at 3:20 in the wreckage area. The relevant authorities have commenced the examination and evaluation processes for these devices.
Turkey's chief prosecutor has opened a formal investigation. Officials say early findings point to a technical malfunction. They say there are no indications of a sabotage at this stage. A Libyan delegation has also arrived in Ankara. They are assisting Turkish authorities as recovery efforts continue. In Tripoli, the response has been somber. Libya's prime minister called the crash a national tragedy.
This great tragedy is a great loss of the nation, the military establishment, and all the people. We have lost men who served their country with sincerity and dedication.
Libya has declared 3 days of national mourning. Flags are flying at half-mast. For now, many questions remain unanswered. Investigators say analysing the flight recorders will take time. But one thing is clear. The death of Libya's top military commander comes at a fragile moment, and it leaves a significant gap in a country still struggling to hold itself together.
Every December, the lights go up. Stockings dangle in living rooms and kids suddenly develop the patience of a monk, waiting for just one man in a red suit, Santa Claus. But Christmas is not just about the magic, it's also about the massive machine that powers it. Because behind the joy and the carols, there's a whole Christmas economy at work. And tonight we are unwrapping all of it. How big is the Christmas economy? Who is leading it? And is inflation crashing the party? First, let's start with the economy, the Christmas economy. Christmas is one of the biggest seasonal economic events, so the total spending goes into trillions of dollars. In the United States, there's a shopping window from November 1st to December 21st. This year, the US recorded 3.9% higher spending than last year. Holiday sales exploded. Over 200 million people shopped in 2025. Globally, the Christmas goods market is huge. In 2023, it was worth $180 billion. From retail to services plus food and travel, this is an entire economic universe powered by Santa. So which country leads in Christmas manufacturing and spending? Well, if Christmas had a capital, it wouldn't be the North Pole. It would be Yiwu in China. This is the world's largest Christmas manufacturing hub, and the numbers back it. China supplies 85 to 88% of America's Christmas imports. India is much smaller in scale, but shines in premium artisan categories like wooden and glass handcrafted ornaments. Globally, India holds 1.9% of Christmas imports. It ranks third after China and Cambodia. But when it comes to spending power, it is the United States that leads. Every year, America spends more than $1 trillion in holiday retail. In Europe, Germany leads the pack. And now for the fun part. What are the most popular gifts? This year's trending global wish list looks like a tech lover's fever dream. Gaming consoles are leading the charge. PlayStation 5 is the most requested console worldwide. Smartphones remain evergreen gifts. But here's a wild card. Movie projectors saw a 945% surge in global searches in 2025. 945% surge. Airplane toys are also flying off the shelves. Lego Game Boy sets are trending as display collectibles. And accessories are having a moment too. The likes of backpack charms and red light therapy devices, they're all popular gifts for this year. And which category dominates Christmas budgets? Well, gifts take 50 to 65% of the total globally. Food and beverages make up 35%. Non-food items dominate 65% of retail sales, the likes of electronics, fashion and beauty. And how are people shopping? E-commerce is the fastest growing Christmas shopping engine, but stores are also packed. Which brings us to the Grinch this Christmas, inflation. Is it affecting the Christmas economy? Well, the short answer is yes, but it's also a bit complicated. Inflation is squeezing households, but Christmas spending has stayed shockingly resilient. According to PayPal, 50% of consumers used buy now, pay later plans to finance Christmas. Retailers are also playing both sides. They have only raised prices on select items. Many even absorb the rising costs due to tariffs. So inflation changed behavior, but it did not stop tradition. People still want to gift, they just want to gift wisely. So yes, inflation tried to play villain, but the Christmas economy refused to flop. Trillions have been spent. Factories in Yiwu have kept the assembly lines jingling. Americans are still leading the spending charts and families are still showing up for the tradition. So tonight, as the world sleeps under fairy lights, remember, Santa delivers gifts, but the economy delivers Santa. And that's the biggest Christmas miracle of them all. While everyone's busy shopping for Christmas, millions of children around the world are doing something else. They're trying to find Santa Claus. Every Christmas Eve, one organization does that for them. It is called NORAD. That's the North American Aerospace Defense Command. It is a joint US and Canadian military command. Its real job is to watch the skies for air and missile threats, but on Christmas Eve, it does something very different. It tracks Santa's journey around the world using radar, satellites, and military systems. And it answers calls from children asking one simple question: where is Santa Claus right now? This tradition is 70 years old, but it started by an accident. Here's how NORAD became part of Christmas.
Every Christmas Eve, something unusual happens inside one of the world's most important military commands. Instead of tracking missiles or unidentified aircraft, it tracks Santa Claus. It is a tradition that has lasted 7 decades. The organization doing it is called NORAD. That stands for the North American Aerospace Defense Command. It is a joint US and Canadian military operation that monitors the skies over North America every hour of every day. Once a year, on Christmas Eve, NORAD takes on a different mission. It tracks Santa's journey around the world. The idea began by an accident. In 1955, a newspaper advertisement invited children to call Santa. The phone number was printed incorrectly. Those calls rang inside a military command center instead. The officer who picked up the phone did not hang up. He played along and asked his staff to check the radar for Santa's location. That moment turned into a tradition.
So 70 years ago, a young child accidentally dialed the predecessor of NORAD, which is the Continental Air Defense Command, and the colonel who answered the phone heard a child asking him, "Where's Santa Claus?" And the colonel realized, well, we track everything over North America, and so we absolutely can see where Santa Claus is.
70 years later, the operation is bigger than ever. More than 1,000 volunteers answer phones on Christmas Eve. Calls come in from around the world. Last year alone, nearly 400,000 people called NORAD to ask one question: is Santa on the way? Families can also track Santa online. NORAD runs a live website and mobile app. It shows Santa moving across time zones, city by city, country by country. So how does a military command track Santa? NORAD says it uses the same systems it relies on every day. Radar stations scan the skies. Satellites detect heat signatures. Fighter jets sometimes escort Santa as he enters North American airspace. Even Rudolph plays a role. NORAD says his glowing nose gives off a heat signal that satellites can detect.
We're just happy that we're able to track him every single year. And the pilots that get to see him, they're lucky.
But for many volunteers, the technology is not the point. The calls are.
I don't think you ever really know who to expect on the other end of the line. Like I said, sometimes it could be a British pub and everybody's going wild and there's like dozens of people in the background cracking up and having fun and asking us silly questions.
NORAD says that is why this tradition continues. Not because Santa needs tracking, but because people do.
You know, there's nothing more, I think, special than a child's eyes lighting up or a child just feeling pure joy about something that they believe in, and it's a do-good thing.
For one night every year, a command built to guard against war tracks a sleigh in the sky. And for millions of families, that makes Christmas feel complete.
We have a lot of year-end traditions already, but here's a new one, a quick commerce report. Swiggy has unveiled its end-of-the-year report and makes for a fabulous reading. A man in Mumbai bought gold worth 15 lakh rupees from quick commerce. A Chennai customer bought pet supplies worth 2.4 lakh rupees, and another Chennai customer bought contraceptives worth 1 lakh rupees. Even Swiggy joked about it, calling it planning ahead. As expected, the internet is quite amused by these purchases. Take a look. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Santa Claus sets off on his journey to deliver gifts across the world. The Grinch helps with traffic control after US police thwart his plan to steal Christmas. And Santa takes a plunge in a Tokyo aquarium to spread Christmas cheer. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. The goal was to prop up the faltering communist government in Kabul. The invasion triggered a brutal decade-long conflict, with Soviet forces facing fierce opposition from Afghan Mujahideen fighters. Mounting casualties and economic strain eventually forced the Soviet Union to withdraw in 1989. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.